The Lord be with you. So we've embarked on a sermon series called Living the Dream. This is our August series, focusing in on and using the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech as a jumping off point. And so this, though, is also not just about Martin Luther King's dream, but it is about God's dream. And God's dream for our world and what that is. More importantly, what behaviors in our world need to change in order for us to live into God's dream. And this morning's word focus is justice, and we'll see in a few moments in today's videos of the I Have a Dream speech a little bit more about justice. This topic comes up in many different ways that seem to be pertinent. But the approach I'm going to be talking about today and moving along with today is a little bit different than that. It's a little bit different than the images that I could elicit from my year that I lived in South Carolina. And I saw how segregation still exists and the need for justice there. I could use and cite examples of our need for justice in our judicial system. I could even start to talk about a clothing store line called Justice, which, if you read their supply chain policy, it works towards justice in these areas. The justice, though, I'm going to talk about is justice which we can live out in our daily lives, justice that will make a difference in our world, justice that empowers people to move beyond the same habits which they've always been ridiculed for. Because that is what keeps a lot of people in the chains they're in, isn't it? People are chained to what was, not necessarily to what could be. And they are denied the freedom they deserve. The freedom to live into God's dream of dignity and power and life for all people. So I want to take a look first off at the portion of the speech this morning dealing with justice.
That one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream.
First off, I gotta say that I love the imagery that King uses here. Sweltering in the heat of injustice. Like I said, I spent some time in South Carolina and worked outside most days as a forest management person. And I spent time outside, and the heat and the humidity was so stifling, the person could not do anything but simply stop. And that's kind of where they're feeling like they're at. But there are two parts to this oppression which Martin Luther King is talking about. The first part is a mindset. The oppression people are arbitrarily put under because of the circumstances beyond their control. Circumstances of race and mental capacity. Circumstances outside of their control that people make fun of them for no other reasons, or creating stereotypes which ultimately represent simply maybe a small portion, one or two people within a group, but the whole group ends up with this stereotype. And I all think we know when we're reaching into or acting out of those prejudices and our stereotypes. And furthermore, Pastor Dalsing addressed this last week when he talked about equality. I want to address another type of oppression. The shackles which we put people in when we assume the only way to help is to give. And by giving, we are doing justice, yes. We are doing justice work. But sometimes we move from doing justice into doing injustice. The injustice occurs when we start doing for other people what they could be doing for themselves. The injustice occurs by creating a loop that people cannot get out of. And then to make matters worse, the helper starts to grumble about their being caught up in this riptide, which continues to pull them further and further away from the shore, out into the deep waters, where they drown in resentment and malcontent. As Christians, we are called to live out justice and to see past the innate shortcomings people have and help them to move into the dignity and self-respect they deserve. And I'm not talking about equality in the sense that everyone should automatically be equal, because each person is given certain gifts in this world, and they should be empowered to use those gifts whatever they are. Put simply, they should be given the opportunities to utilize those gifts. In God's dream, we all bring something to the table to share, both big and small. What I'm talking about in moving into God's dream of justice for the world is teaching people the tools they need to swim out of the current, to swim out to the riptide and move to shore in order to live out God's purposes for their lives. The justice I'm talking about is walking alongside people in order that they might be able to see a picture of something different for their lives, seeing themselves with control in the situation, creating opportunities where dignity can be restored and people can be lifted up and not torn down further, helping those in need to see something different, not keeping them in the current that just keeps swinging them around and around in circles by people beating them over the head with the same old crap of "you can't do it," but telling them instead you can do it, and then showing them how they can reach the shore. That is justice. To help people explore this type of justice, I want you to help me finish these four statements, or two statements, excuse me. To explore this, help me finish these two statements. Give a man a fish and you feed him. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for? Very good, thank you. So you guys have been paying attention to those, but it leaves a couple of questions that I've had to wrestle with recently, which had been posed to me. You can teach him to fish, but what is he going to fish with? You can give him the fishing tackle to fish with, but is he allowed to use the fishing hole? These statements are justice statements. Different levels of help that can be given, and they are all important. The first one is about relief. And there are times that when, yes, stuff happens, life happens, and the world can come crashing down on someone. And quickly, a child gets sick, the car breaks down, and all of a sudden a job gets lost for whatever reason, and a crisis situation emerges. These are the times when people are in an emergency mode and simply need relief quickly. Food on the shelf, help with rent. I get these visits often. People calling and asking for help. They've never done it before and just need something to get by. Most people whose first time it is, you can just see their pride just begin to melt away and get shot down as they ask. They are in need, and it would be an injustice to say no. The challenge, though, is to make the determination of who this is really their first time for. Is this a continued cycle of asking over and over and over again? A little closer to home, a college friend of mine named Matthew, first year of college, was able to, at least when I was starting college, credit cards were everywhere throughout the campus. My friend Matthew, he started collecting these credit cards and immediately started using them and collecting debt. A little bit too much that first year, and Matthew started to stress more and more about the bills and how he was going to pay them than he did about his schoolwork. Finally, he gave up. He called home and he asked for help. And yes, his parents were kind enough to be able to help him out. It was relief, and his parents were able to provide it for him. Now, we'll come back to Matthew's story in a few moments, but giving food, helping with rent, sharing with resources, helping a child out are all, in a sense, relief. They're justice issues. The danger with this type of justice lies in that sometimes this relief turns into a way of life. It starts a cycle of enabling. It creates a sense of entitlement. It can disempower people. It creates a dependence upon the help. In his book, Toxic Charity, Bob Lupton writes that we should not do for others what they can do for themselves, because we disempower them to produce change in their lives. And they get caught in this undercurrent, this undertow, and are never allowed to come up for air and breathe on their own. Furthermore, they're ridiculed for their living habits, both the outside world and, yes, by their own parents and family. For many who are caught in these currents, they do not know how to get out, because either they've never been taught how, or B, because they've never had a reason to try. Teach a man to fish, and they will eat for a lifetime. That's that next step towards work and towards justice, is teaching a man to fish. And you do it, yes, by allowing them to, helping them to get out of the reliance on the relief, and in a sense, learn to supply for themselves. Again, relief is necessary at times. Many of us have been there, myself included, but it is supposed to be relief for a short period of time, not a lifestyle. You see, my friend Matthew, he continued, after that first time that he went to his parents, he continued to rack his credit card bill up and continued to charge and go and ask for his parents for help, and he knew what he needed to do. However, his parents continued to help him, continued to pay for his bills, and he continued to do it, but he never got the opportunity, the chance to go fishing. Well, he had the opportunity, but if you could simply go and get fish without fishing, why would you need to try to fish? Why would you need to? He could have learned after that first time that he can't go to mom and dad every time, that he was irresponsible, by his parents simply telling him no. We're happy to help you once, but now you're on your own. Matthew's 34 now and continues to frustrate his parents, even well into adulthood. And though the parents say they're happy to help, you can see that the smile on their faces is only skin deep. And I've talked with other parents who have cut these ties or are in the process of cutting the ties, and it's a very painful process. But the ones who have gone through it have found that once they push their children out of the nest fully, they've not only been able to fly, but they've been able to soar on their own with dignity. For others, they might never have had anyone to teach them any other way that is life-giving, and they continue to be held in this undertow. I know of one person who loves working with others on budgeting, working with them through their finances. And she seeks out people in which she can help in order to help them live on what resources, great or small, that they have. She works to empower. She works to teach. People who continue to struggle financially might need to be taught how to budget better or how to handle their finances because no one has ever taught them before. So each month they simply end up short. For others, they might not have had anyone push them in how to work. For many of us, not knowing how to work seems like a foreign idea. But as I thought about it, if you're like me, someone taught me, either by simply osmosis of walking alongside parents or other people teaching us what it meant to show up on time, or what it means to work hard, or to give it your all while working. For some, they need mentors who will walk alongside them in order to help them understand a budget or understand how an alarm clock works. Or more importantly, that when the alarm goes off in the morning, you're supposed to wake up. These are all ways that we can work towards individual justice. And this next form of justice is in areas that Grace has been working towards these last couple of years. The idea that justice is something that we work towards as a community and that we do together. And this is the community development form of justice, or giving that fishing tackle, the tools that people need, beyond just teaching them. And here, these are some really fun ideas too, and fun things and dreams that people lift up. These are the dreams that come alive in the world, and they are starting to be birthed right here at Grace. You see, it is great on paper to give people the knowledge that they need in order to be a great employee, but they'll need a job in order to use those skills. There are several organizations which do a great job of teaching and then giving opportunities of using these newfound skills in our area. And I want to encourage you to support them by volunteering or by giving financially. First of all, Habitat for Humanity, helping people acquire housing they would not ordinarily be able to attain. But there's dignity in these houses, because people have to work to build their homes. They have to put in like 300 or 400 hours of their time into their own home, helping to build it, and then they have to pay for that building. And those owners, by the time they're done, probably have more pride in their homes and probably know more about their homes than many of us with our own homes. Then there's Crusader Clinic, which charges a sliding fee or sliding scale for its services based on income. It is justice work. People can use their services and they pay for the value that it provides for them. And it's not subpar care either. I've even gone there for a procedure before, and the care that I received was excellent. This is justice. Giving people a shake, allowing to approach these needs with dignity. Not just a handout, but helping. Allowing people to do for themselves. Then there's Katie's Cup and Restoration Cafe downtown that work to help people attain job skills. And likewise, I'm most proud of us here at Grace and our support of Quixotic Bakery, which is doing this job work skill right here, helping our youth acquire the job skills they will need for life, to empower them so that they might be able to find the work that will be life-giving to them for later on. And if you don't have the ability to offer a house or a job offering, or giving your support to these places that are doing this work, like helping with Habitat by providing lunches, or going to the site and swinging a hammer for a few hours, or helping with Quixotic, or even purchasing a cookie. That's justice work. Imagine that. Purchasing a cookie can be justice work, or a cup of coffee. That's all justice work. A quick plug-in for Quixotic. Pre-orders this month go towards teaching of our youth and children, but also goes towards your justice work with Friday Fun Fest. So make some pre-orders, because Friday Fun Fest is another way in which we support and advocate and help empower people for life. The next form is helping to create opportunities for people to access the fish pond. And that's through advocacy. Saying that, speaking out where we see people being blocked from having dignity because of who they are, because they don't have the resources others do, because they don't come from the same background as others do, because they're not as smart as other people, or working to create systematic change in our society and in our world so that all people have access, at least, to the things that they need, to the jobs that they need, to the places that they need to get to for life. So how can we do justice? We can, yes, provide relief when necessary. We can teach people a different way of being through mentoring, through sharing our lives, through sharing our resources, finding those mentoring opportunities and relationships when necessary. We can do justice by providing the resources for the staples of life. We can do justice by advocating for systematic change. We do this not for our own benefit, but so that we might point to God and what God's dream for the world is. Amen.